Alright, what's up, y'all? Today we'll be going over blue for one. They got some really nice things, and honestly, I'm pretty stoked to see what blue has in this set because prior to before, one of the things I really hate about blue is not being able to interact with blue outside of
We
blue
need
decks. But
some
seeing what
milk.
they've got now, it feels a little more palatable. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm kind of enjoying it. Like a lot of the mythics are something like a permanent you can interact with in various different colors, although they're pretty strong. That's not to say other colors don't have strong abilities and effects and permanents. These just seem a little more. So, anyways, let's get into it. See what we got. First card is Blade of Shared Souls. 2 in a blue for an artifact equipment with 4 Mirrodin. So you get a 2/2 red rebel when this enters the battlefield. Whenever Blade of Shared Souls becomes attached to a creature, aka the rebel, for as long as Blade of Shared Souls remains attached to it, you may have target creature become a copy of another target creature you control. So we've seen this sort of effect from like some of the MDFC land that we've had before, and I think those were played pretty nicely. The one thing that does suck about this compared to like other, I would say, shapeshifter effects is that this requires you to target a creature you control. So at times it feels like it could be a dead card, which is kind of rough, but you have to understand that as long as this is attached to a creature, that creature becomes a copy of a creature you control. And usually when people have equipments attached, they're honestly, and I could be wrong here, but I feel like most of the time they're going to be destroying the creature, not the equipment. So this is going to be able to get you like nice value from whatever like tokens you're making. Like I can imagine tokens in like Commander where people are giving you a bunch of different 3/3s, they're giving you swans, giving you all this stuff. Well, imagine you play some big boy afterwards, and then you equip this to your swan. Your swan becomes a copy of for lack of better cards or other cards, Creator of Behemoth, or a what's another good card? I guess you can do legendaries. Can you do legendaries? It means a copy because it's a copy of it. I don't think you can do legendaries. Imagine it's a copy of Robert the Rich, right? Like this is pretty sweet. Although it doesn't give you any buff to like power and toughness, it's still like a really sweet effect. I really like this, but I definitely think it's gonna be hard to find a place for this in. I think anything beyond standard. I think standard might have a deck. I don't know what deck that'll be, but I think it's doable because you get 3 mana for a 2/2 that can be copied of anything else. That's like fair. But then in Commander, well, honestly, I think the ceiling's like pretty high. But of course, it is really susceptible. But I think this is a cool card. I think this is a really nice card. Next up is Blue Sun's Twilight. X and a blue for sorcery with gain control of target creature with mana value X or less. If X is 5 or more, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That's it. That's it. This is a pretty strong effect, I think. In regards to standard, this is, I think, probably not going to see that much play. But I think it'll see some play maybe in Commander when you're trying to like copy everything and like everyone's mom. This is pretty decent of an effect. I think it gets stronger when, of course, you have a bunch of mana where you can create a copy. Yeah, you can create a copy of whatever you want to grab. So it's like a 2-for-1 in that sense because not only do, well, I guess in that sense it's only a 2-for-1 if you're playing in something like a 1v1 format, aka standard. In a non 1v1 format, casting you might be able to do something better, but I can say with probably all cards. Getting an extra copy of a card you want to steal, and there's just so many people at the table. The ceiling of this is like pretty high. It's really fun. Like you can steal a copy of like a Voron Collect and then create another copy. But I kind of stop thinking of legendary creatures because they just die when you create a copy of them. It doesn't have the clause that says they don't. Or they don't have like legendary protection clause where like legendary rules or that. You get another permanent of that type of that copy. Of what you took. That's really good. That's really good. I can imagine a bunch of stuff you can take. You can take Trigon Predator. Is that a card that people sees play? You can create a copy of Wall of Blossoms. These are all bad picks. I know. But what is that one? Oh, Nykthos Blossom. What's that big like 7 mana triples all your spells? Create a copy of that thing. Create a copy of that thing, and then you've got ×6 for every land or mana producing. That's gonna be sweet. That's gonna be sweet. I can imagine that happening once or two times. But yeah, this is an okay card. I'm feeling it's gonna lack a little bit in standard actually now that I think of it because while it is fine in like I think blue decks, what kind of blue deck wants to seal that much? Like it's pretty costly. I feel like if you want going tempo, you're probably not gonna be costing this for like too much against other like sideboard for like other tempo decks where like X isn't any bigger than like 2 or 1. Because you can just play like Spell Pierce or like Essence Scatter, that sort of thing. I'm not sure about, but I think this is like a pretty fun card though, at least. The next card is Encroaching Mycosynth. That's it. 3 in a blue for an artifact with non-land permanents you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for permanent spells you control and non-land permanent cards you own that aren't on the back. I could be wrong, but I think there was in the supplemental Warhammer set wasn't there a black card that did the same thing? It might have been like permanents on the battlefield are artifacts in addition to their other types, but like this is that but blue, which I guess makes sense. Most colors can, I think, interact with artifacts, and this is just sort of in that wheelbarrow. Is that the right term for that? This is a cool effect. I think because it says anomaly and permanent control that artifacts in addition to their type. This is true for cards that you own that aren't on the battlefield. That means you could just go into your library and take an artifact, right? Am I reading that correctly? Like, I'm not sure how many artifacts that under artifact tutors in blue that just like take artifacts out of your library, but I know there's at least some artifact shenanigans that can be done on creatures that are just like, I forgot the creature's name, but you can swap an artifact from like the battlefield with an artifact from your hand. So that's just interesting because that just means if you have like what's like the scary, I guess, consecrated sphinx. Like if you have a consecrated sphinx in your hand and an artifact on the battlefield and you have this out, this just sort of makes it like a pretty threatening ability, because just swapping swapping the artifact in for consecrated sphinx is all the more scarier because no one's gonna know, no one's gonna realize. But of course, when you do see this, you're just like, okay, like they for sure have something. There's some sort of shenanigan. And the scary thing about this card is you see it and then you're just like, okay, that has to be dealt with. I think the ceiling is really low with this effect because it's a strong effect, because things like what is it, Mycosynth Lattice, that makes everything artifacts. I guess colorless if they're spells. This doesn't have that additional. Oh, 6 mana. This costs 4, so it's 2 less. It's blue, but when it immediately comes in, I don't want to say it doesn't do anything, because permanents you own on the battlefield are artifacts now, making them a little more susceptible to like red or like green. Actually, all colors, right, except for black. It's pretty scary for a blue mage because those things weren't really necessarily true prior, because why the hell are you playing permanents if you're playing blue? Because you got to play your counters, why not, right? Right. This just means like it could very well just be like a 4 mana do nothing. It could be. It's a pretty low floor, but the ceiling is quite high. Adding those extra types means it adds so much more synergy to your deck. It's gonna be pretty sweet, which I think is gonna make it interesting in Commander, because if you see this, it looks super unthreatening first because it just gives types to everything you own, right? And I'm assuming your deck is made of artifacts. What kind of thing in your deck that isn't an artifact you want to use with this as a combo, right? Like generally, if you're an artifact deck, you're probably gonna have mostly artifacts. And if something's not an artifact, but if it became an artifact and like breaks the synergy in half, just like cracks it completely, as in it like works well through your deck, isn't that like more thought to like actually destroying this artifact? I don't know. This might be a weird tangent, but that's just sort of what I think. I don't think it'll be seeing too much play in Standard, but I think it'll see a decent amount of play in Commander, where this sort of effect works really well, because it can benefit others as well, which gives them reason to protect it, etc., etc. But actually, no, it only affects you. Actually, it only affects you. So yeah, I think people are gonna kill it. I think people are gonna kill this, but this is a cool effect. Definitely a cool effect. Yeah, 4 mana is a lot, so I don't think it'll see play in higher level games of Commander, but definitely lower level. Be pretty interesting to see. So I'm probably not gonna be playing it, but there's actually that one Commander that just came out, which honestly, this with that, what was his name? Was it Latnam? I think his name was Latnam. He was the dude in Talaria, but he had a new card, like a 2 mana card, and I think he copies artifacts that are on the stack, artifact spells that are on the stack. Then he can also return artifacts from the battlefield to your hand for like a low cost. Like this would be pretty dope with like that. I'm pretty sure it opens up a lot more possibilities. I'm actually curious to see what they have to say about this in like the EDH subreddit for him. I think there's a CDH subreddit for him, but I think that's where you get like most of your juiciest, most luscious, not trying to dramatize it too much, like super sweet combos for yeah, this is sweet. This is a sweet card. I think this will see play in artifact decks occasionally. It's got that, and not to keep talking about it, it's got that like weird effect with Vidalcan Orrery, or like what's the blue ley line of anticipation? Like if you put ley line of anticipation in your deck, but you're already running like half your deck's already instances, or like flash based spells, the benefits of that card are diminished so much, because it's basically taking up another spot, and your deck is for the most part already doing what it needed to without that card, right? Like the odds of you drawing it and then playing it and having cards that would work with it beneficially without detriment to yourself are, I think, pretty low. And I think has the same effect as that. Of course, let me know what y'all think about this in the comment section down below. Another juicy one, Ekorman Gauntlet. 2 and a blue for an artifact with planeswalkers you control have 0 proliferate and -12 take an extra turn after this one. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, Whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, choose a counter on target permanent. Put an additional counter on that kind of that permanent. That is a pretty nutty ability. This is a pretty nutty card. This is, I think, pretty insane in regards to at least. Actually, no. I think it might be even playable in higher levels of Commander. Will it be played in Standard? Is it playable in Standard? I don't know. Taking a turn off to do nothing in the face of like best of one red, probably not where you want to be. Maybe in the case of BO3, I could see it, but in Commander, I think this is like pretty dope for higher, maybe even CH tier Commander. I think you generally do need to have like a decent amount of stacks. This card is like pretty sweet. So it comes in. I assume you play it pretty early, right? It comes in. You can proliferate. Your creatures gain proliferate, and they gain -12. Take an extra turn. The rough thing about this is you're playing in a 4-player pod. I will say the higher your power level of your pod, I think generally fewer creatures. That changed a bit recently, especially with like a lot of the newer sets where they're giving creatures like newer abilities that scale with the amount of players that are being or like opponents you have. The fact that this gives you a 0 proliferate, like yeah, it could buff up one of your, if you have one planeswalker out, it could buff them up by 1. But you have to play a lot of non-creature spells, and they have to be non-creature spells that are like free castable in that environment because you just have so much to interact with. I think in this case, if you do want to play this in your deck, you're gonna need to be playing things like Snuff Out, Gallowing. What's that black spell that exiles you have your commander out? You're gonna need to play spells like all these black free removal spells to get more permanent, to get basically defend your planeswalker with the last effect. But after you do have enough defense, and I would say arguably enough stacks, so that way they don't interact with them on the stack, your planeswalker's on the stack. I think after that, it's probably a game over. Like, even with the newer designs of planeswalkers, while they don't end the game immediately, they have a decent amount of value to where, like, they could be attacked and, like, they can attack with, like, their just -0 or, like, -2. You don't need an emblem from them to win. It's just going to be slower. But getting the extra turn and being able to proliferate all your planeswalkers from one ability is going to mean, like, this is going to be one of those cards that will probably win like immediately if you have like 5 planeswalkers out. But at the same time, it's like, are you not already winning if you have 5 planeswalkers out, right? Because if you have all your planeswalkers proliferating each other, they're all getting to their ultimate pretty soon. And you just need that one planeswalker that's probably doesn't have the strongest abilities to take that -12, and that way that planeswalker that you just ulted for that -12 can now just proliferate that turn, and another planeswalker can do the duty of doing the -12, right? And then so this basically becomes like an infinite loop of taking extra turns. And if your deck is based off of like the infinite turn strategy, I'm assuming you're gonna be playing more non-creature spells, so like you can just proliferate by playing more non-creature spells. So like there's a nice feedback loop here where like once this does get going, this engine you have here, I think it's pretty strong. And I don't even think you need that many planeswalkers, which I think is the probably stronger part, because that last clause of text, you just need to cast a lot of non-creature spells. So this could be like a fair amount of cantrips. You do need a lot of mana in that case, but like if your planeswalker like survives a turn, and if it's like one of the older planeswalkers that has like an ult that just like ends the game, that's as good, I would say, as the -12, even better. I will say though, if you are low on planeswalkers, the 0 proliferate probably kind of weak. That's probably like one of the weaker effects, because honestly, if you're playing planeswalkers just to proliferate, is that where you want to be? It might be where you want to be though. It might be where you want to be. I just say that because if you're playing a planeswalker, I think you should be playing it because of its plus or minus ability, not in conjunction because you have Ickerman in your deck. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong. There's a lot of cards that are just like, this is only good because this card's in the deck, right? This is why you play combo strategies, because the combo is good because when the two pieces are together, you just win the game. So this could be like that case. I'm super curious how this plays out. I really want to say this is good in like higher level pods though as well. It just takes like 1 or 2 planeswalkers to go off with this, because you're already playing a lot of non-creature spells, and then bam, you got your thing, you got your ult, and now you're taking a bunch of extra turns. The game's pretty much good as over. Especially for like blue planeswalkers that like draws you cards, it draws you cantrips to that feeds itself. Like, right, can you imagine like you +1 draw 2 cards at your blue planeswalker, you draw like 2 cantrips, then all of a sudden you've got one other blue planeswalker and he's about to -12 based off of this artifact, and you're just like, oh, cantrip twice, and then they're all up like 3 loyalty within like 1 turn. I think it's kind of nutty. But maybe it's just like me frothing at the mouth because it's like a pretty strong card, because Super Friends has always been, it seems to always be like a pretty taboo topic in regards to like, I want to say more casual pods. Yeah, I think this is like a fun card to see play, and I think it's definitely worth testing because that's a strong ability. Definitely a strong ability. But let's get to the next one. Next up is Jace the Perfected Mind. 2 and a blue and a blue, a Phyrexian blue. Get a legendary planeswalker Jace with completed, so he can potentially cost 3 mana and come in with 3 loyalty instead of 4 mana, come in with 5 loyalty. +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0. So this creature essentially is fogged for the most part. It's in 1v1 form. -2 target player mills 3 cards. Then if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, draw 3 cards. Otherwise, draw a card. Sheesh. -X target player mills times X cards. Okay, this is I think interesting. Kinda. 3 mana, 3/3. That's like pseudo removal. Okay, that's there's been a lot of blue cards that have had that effect. It's sort of like the white planeswalker effect where they do the pseudo removal right there. Or like the red or the black ones will have the actual hard removal at most times. Even actually black gets hard removal at the minus, right? The minus ability. This is like fine. It protects itself, protects you. So I think it's fine for that loyalty. It's until your next turn too, up to 1 target creature. So yeah, I think that's fine. The -2 target player mills 3 cards. Then if your graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, which is a lot. 20 or more cards is a lot. It says if a graveyard though. So I think this is probably better in Commander for that reason, because even in like Standard, or I want to say Pioneer or Explorer, the odds of someone having 20 cards in their graveyard, something must have been printed recently that like is past like this one set, right? Like usually if there are more than 5 or 10 cards in the graveyard, your control deck, you're doing fine. Okay, this is basically, I feel like a win more. But if you're playing against like a combo deck, the odds of them having that many cards in their graveyard means something's wrong. Something's like seriously wrong. They probably should have won by now. Like I'm thinking of Greasefang. Greasefang? Is that the name of the card? The black white one that reanimates the vehicles. I'm thinking of that card. I mean, usually by then, by the time they have at least 10 cards in their library, they've got a creature, they've got Greasefang, something swinging at you for like, is it 18? 18 damage on board? Or no, 13 damage on board. Something swinging with you for 13 damage on board, right? The 2 4/4s plus the 5, so that's like 8 plus 5 is 13. Yeah, this is probably not surviving. Unless the Greasefang player is like playing Greasefang is black white, right? So Esper Greasefang, that seems like they're trolling, right? I don't think this is a combo card. Maybe it is though. Maybe it's like a targeted mill card for like you, or like maybe Blue Spirits or like Demir Rogues could play this and it'd be fine. Having the -3 stops offensive creatures, maybe red decks, because they want to swing at this. And you can just go for the mill plan, or even just like it's like a pseudo removal for Demir, not Demir Spirits, but Demir Rogues. I could see that maybe. Drawing 1 card, for the -2, You could do it once if you use the completed cost. You can do it twice immediately, or twice turn after turn if you don't do the completed cost. Is 4 mana draw too good? I don't know. I think, okay, so this is how usually I think of planeswalkers. I think of them based on value, because when I play my decks, I'm usually going for the long run, because there's no way unless you're playing aggro, there's no way unless you're playing aggro, because I'm playing mostly white decks anyways, that you can really go work on like burst like use burst payoffs, right? White just does things very slowly. The +1, that's probably like a 1 mana spell. The -2, that's probably a 1 mana spell. The -X, maybe 2 mana spell. So like the mana values aren't adding up as quickly as I think they should be in order to get the maximum value out of the Perfected Mind. So that makes me question it a little bit. But other than that, I think this card is like okay. Like if you get this down early enough in like an aggro deck, like a blue aggro deck, maybe it will work. Maybe, because then you can just use a +1 as sort of like a removal spell, and then the -2 as like a draw card spell, which is like really hard to sell, because I feel like you could draw cards easily, a little more easy. Don't they have the 2 mana draw 2 cards if a creature already attacked? I think that would be better in like most cases for like a blue based tempo / aggro deck. Okay, I don't play blue that much. The source is actually, trust me, bro. Like that's the actual source. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I don't know. Okay, maybe it is that bad. I'm thinking of what was that one Jace? The one Jace that came out in Ixalan. I'm getting that vibe from. You want to like cope and say like it's good, or like it's playable, but no. The 3, if you use it as a mill card though, I think that's fine though. I think that'd be playable maybe in. Even like Tasha's Hideous Laugh is a little better, because most mana values in like older formats are like super low to the ground. It could the ceiling for Tasha is a little higher. This is potentially 3 mana, mill 9 if you use it all the way. Let's see, what does Glimpse of the Unthinkable do? How much mill does that one? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter that much because it's probably not gonna be C play. Maybe I'm coping too hard. Anyways, let me know what y'all think about this comment in the comments below. Is this playable? Are y'all playing this? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on it. I've been overthinking this, but maybe it's just not playable. But let me know what y'all think about this. Next up, we have our Snapcaster variant Mercurial Spelldancer. 1 in a blue for a creature, Phyrexian Rogue, with Mercurial Spelldancer can't be blocked. When I recast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on Mercurial Spelldancer. When Mercurial Spelldancer deals combat damage to a player, you may remove 2 oil counters from it. If you do, when you cast your next instant spell or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. 2/1. This card looks so fun. This is one of those cards. This is for a long time is like make variants of older cards that have like a weirder, that I don't want to say side grade, but like the ceiling is definitely slanted and that it looks really close to older cards, but the way to get to the potential those older cards had immediately is slower, which makes for like a cooler card design, I want to say a lot of times, but also it makes you have that nostalgia that those older cards had, but like in newer form. I think that's what this does sort of with Snapcaster. Although Snapcaster is mostly used, I feel like, in context of blue-white, or actually not even blue-white, and I feel like it's not even used that much in modern. I feel like you're going to get the same sort of nostalgia feel, but I feel like it's going to be used in more of an aggressive shell because it can't be blocked. Oh, wait, it can't be blocked. Oh, wait a minute. Mercurial Spelldancer can't be blocked. I thought it couldn't block. Okay, that makes this card, I think that makes this card actually better. Because it can block, it can be used offensively and defensively. All you need to do is cast non-creature spells. So you're probably playing this in a control deck. If you're playing this in a control deck, I would say casting non-creature spells pretty easy. It does require you to cast it in your main phase. Is that worth tapping out for? I mean, you're probably not gonna tap out all the way, but I would say you can use the second ability as a means to like as a lower floor but higher ceiling card advantage engine in a control based deck. But then again, you're just like putting your bags in this. You're putting your eggs in this very fertile bag because it's a creature on the board that can get zapped, it can't looked at, and it'll die immediately. So I think that's why it's good in tempo deck. But like in Commander, hear me out. In Commander, I think that changes. I think that changes like quite a lot because first of all, you're playing your mana rocks, right? This is just non-creature spells. Yeah, you're playing your mana rocks, so this is just like accidentally gonna be activated. Like you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna play my brain ring, my soul ring with my mind stone, and then oops, I'm just gonna accidentally cast a rampant growth, right? And it's just gonna gain card advantage. It just needs attack. Like I think the floor in Commander is so low with this card. Like this card is like super good, right? It says can't be blocked, right? So this just can't be blocked. It just swings in and does what it does. That's actually pretty nutty in Commander, I think. I think this is honestly one of those cards that are just like, if you're playing blue, don't you just put this in your deck? This is basically the Dark Confidant in blue. Because even in Commander, like casting 1 or 2 non-creature spells, or I guess instant sorcery spells in your main phase isn't really unheard of. It kind of sucks a bit because you want to play a little more reactive. But even then, there's like a bunch of stacks that come out that make people play more proactive with their spell. I think this is like a really strong card. Maybe I'm overhyping this again. Maybe I'm overhyping this, but like the more I read it, the more just like it seems to be what I'm looking at. Like it can't be blocked, so it will trigger the deal combat damage to a player. You can put more than just like 2 oil counters on it. It's not stopped from having more than 2. So that way you can flood out in one turn where everyone's tapped out, or when everyone's tapped out, you can play a bunch of spells. You can basically store all of your eggs in this basket, store all the oil counters on this creature, and then just like the next 2 turns in a row, just like, oh, I'm gonna swing and I'm gonna copy my next spell. Oh, I'm gonna swing and I'm gonna copy my next spell, right? This is, I think, so good for that case. I think it's an answer, like one of those cards that you have to answer, otherwise it's gonna roll, take. And I say that in like pods where like, okay, having super high card advantage, or having a deck where like all cards in your deck are a problem or a threat. So like higher level pods, this could be really strong. Lower level pods still can be pretty strong because like imagine copying extra turn spells. Like it's a 2/1 though, okay? It's a 2/1. Just run more removal. Just run removal. And honestly, it does die to like just a breath of air. But yeah. So I think this is good in Commander. Probably not gonna see much play in Standard or Pioneer unless it's like a tempo deck that has a lot of protection, which granted a lot of blue tempo decks do have protection and interaction at low cost. This could work there. But then again, they're not playing really proactively in regards to like cantrips or anything like that. But they do have some of those cantrips that do the proactive thing where it's like, oh, if you attack with a creature this turn, it's sorcery speed, draw 2 cards. This could up it into drawing 4 cards. Pretty spooky. We've seen Dimir Rogues have this sort of thing where like they'll play Into the Story, which I think is 4 mana, draw 5 cards. Is it 3 mana, draw 5 cards? I forget exactly based on the number of cards people have in their graveyard. So like it's not unheard of to have this sort of card advantage effect in these colors. But this also swings for damage. But of course, let me know what y'all think about these in the comment section down below. I think this is a pretty sweet card. We have our blue ramp, Mind Splice Apparatus. 3 in a blue for an artifact with flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. I'm gonna say that. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. I'm gonna call it MA. Can we just call it MA here? This is a cool card. I think blue has had this effect prior, but I think it's been a static effect. It's been like, this is on the field. Instant sorcery spells cost 2 less and doesn't go up. This has a higher ceiling, and that if you're playing big spell slinger kind of deck, oil counters on this just means you're going to be able to. I just thought of. Okay, let me just finish my thought. Oops. I pulled out my headphones. Oil counters on this does mean that the ceiling's gonna be higher. So extra turn spells, big X spells, just big spells are gonna cost a lot less. Starting at turn 3 or 4, which is pretty late, but if you're playing, you want to have a lot of redundancy in those sort of decks, so this is like, I think, fine for those cases. It kind of reminds me of, what was that blue card in, I think, Amonkhet, where it was basically every turn you get to cast 1 spell for free. This sort of reminds me of that. It does take 1 turn to get around. It isn't on an enchantment, so it's going to be a little easier to get rid of. But it has flash, so it could basically be at the end of your turn 4 or turn 3 when you have like 4 mana up. And I think it's really strong in that case. I think it's really, really strong because of that. I think this is a cool card. I don't think it'll see play in Standard. I don't think it'll see play in Pioneer. Well, I can see it being playing in Commander. This is like one of those blue spells that, you know, will probably run the game over. Because once you cast your few spells for free, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of other spells in your hand, after drawing a bunch of cards, a bunch of other spells in your hand, you just win after that, right? Like, draw a few cards, play your cantrips, just like, and this affects cards like Cyclonic Rift, where like, the Cyclonic Rift cost can be paid for the other costs. And it says instant and sorcery spells you cast, so it's like, just full stop. Instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. So unlike the enchantment version that was in Amonkhet, this counts for all spells in your turn. So like, the ceiling is definitely much higher, which I think makes it definitely more threatening, but it's on an artifact, so it's a little more easy to take care of. The fact that red has a lot of artifact removal means like a bunch of artifacts in these sets that are coming out, it's going to be really easy to sort of handle these situations now, because, well, red's got a bunch of artifact removal, and that means people have to opt into playing red, green, or white a lot of times to get rid of these blue effects, instead of just having them all be based on like the stack. Not that all blue effects were being played in the stack, but like, this is just another testament to like people being a little more, I guess, WotC being a little more likely to printing more powerful effects on artifacts, because they can be handled by others instead of just like being handled. Yeah, I think strong card. I think I'll honestly be playing this in like some sort of deck. I want to put like a brawl deck together, but that just seems like I'm asking for trouble. And like, this seems like it's something you want to put in there, but at the same case, it's like, if you already have brawl in the command zone, do you really need your spells to cost 1 less, right? Like, I feel like you just want card advantage in the command zone if you want to play this sort. You already have your ramp somewhere in your deck. Once you just draw it, I don't know. Maybe this needs to be like in a control shell. I think for sure it needs to be. Yeah, this is a sweet card. Probably play it in your blue decks. If you're not, I don't want to say you're trolling, but this is definitely one of those cards that are win more. It's for sure win more. You have to play this and then like not do anything. But if you're playing this in blue, I feel like you're tapping out. You're waiting on that turn 4. You're gonna wait the whole turn cycle. You're gonna tap out. But then I feel like someone's got to answer it, man. Someone's got. I'm one of those people that just like, bruh, you let that person resolve this card? Like, come on. And it's funny to say that because of like, I'm only playing white, but ooh, just watch out. This is gonna be in your pods. This is gonna be in your pods. It's gonna be in your play groups. You're gonna need to hold up your mana. Hold up your mana more often. But yeah, this is a cool card. Next card is Serum Sovereign. Look at that body. That's just actually an artifact. This isn't a creature. This is an artifact creature. 4 in a blue for a creature, Phyrexian Sphinx with flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on Serum Sovereign. blue, remove an oil counter from Serum Sovereign. Draw a card, then scry 2. This is a pretty strong effect, albeit it's not a Consecrated Sphinx. Drawing a card, then scrying 2, aka Serum Visions, I think it's pretty strong. Like, this is like cantrip, and then use a blue to cantrip again. Like, I think it's really strong. It's like also one of those things where you're gonna accidentally get a bunch of oil counters. There's no real need to build off of this, because a lot of people, especially playing blue, if you're not playing a green sounds green deck, are gonna play a bunch of different artifacts. This is just removing counters based on those artifacts you played for no additional cost other than the initial investment of like playing the 5 mana. It's just gonna cantrip. I think it's really strong. And the benefit of getting these like stored card draws off of the non-creature ramp spells is like, this just means like the ramp spells now they just like come in and pay for themselves immediately, because you just can remove counters off of this to draw a card, right? Like the opportunity costs of just having this on the field and then just like incidentally drawing cards is moderately low. I want to say moderately because like, okay, you're at 5 mana, you know, people are probably playing their threats by now, but like this is, I think, strong for that reason. And that's of course in context of Commander. Will this see play in Pioneer or see play in Standard? I want to say no. 5 mana for a 4/4 that's going long. Could it be a game ender? It does. It is out of the 3 damage removal spells that a lot of red cards have. So maybe, but even then, there's a lot of like red cards that are printed at sorcery speed that are 2 mana that just deal 4 damage. This could be handled by that. I don't think it's gonna see play in Standard or Pioneer for that reason, so I'm definitely saying it's like more of a commander card. I think it's like moderately strong. Like, I think you want to put this in like a lot of your casual blue decks, because this is nothing to sniff at. You just continue playing your deck and you get benefits, right? Like, the hoops you need to jump through to play this sort of card are super low. And those hoops like build off of themselves. Like those hoops build this card up. like you just need to tap your Sapphire Stone or whatever. Pay a blue after casting Sapphire Stone to like draw a card. I don't know if Sapphire Stone's the actual magic card. Like, this pays for itself like pretty easily. Yeah, strong card. Probably put in your casual decks. I think you'll see. Next up is Tekuthal, Inquiry Dominus, 2 and a blue for legendary creature, Phyrexian Horror. This is one of those Dominuses that I'm still not sure what their ranking in the hierarchy is, but it's a legendary creature, Phyrexian Horror, that has 3/5. It's a 3/5 with flying, and if you would proliferate twice. It also has the God mode, which is like 1 a blue, Phyrexian blue. Remove 3 counters from artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers you control. Put an indestructible counter on Tekuthal, Inquiry Dominus, and you have an indestructible Phyrexian Horror now. This is probably one of those cards you put in. Ooh, this is the same card you put in the card for that artifact that we got just recently in this set that I went over, where like it gives your planeswalkers proliferate. Because if this is there, this is probably like being there to block your planeswalkers. And on top of that, this is probably like like honestly is a casual, like, is it a casual? Would you say casual for it? It's just like an incidental combo there. Because if you have like 2 or 3 planeswalkers out and you have like the artifact that proliferates them and this out, that's like more than 6 loyalty around in that current round, like on your turn, which is a lot. Like, what can you do at that point? I'm assuming since you already have 3 planeswalkers out, they have some sort of loyalty that is like non-1 or like at least close to 1, but like bumping that up to, and they're all proliferating each other too, right? So they like upping 1 will proliferate the other. So like honestly, you probably at alt range. I don't want to do the math right now because listen, it's the weekend. I don't want to do no math right now. Is it that hard to do the math for this though? Okay, so you have one planeswalker. You have the artifact that proliferates. That planeswalker proliferates, so it proliferates twice. So it goes up to, everyone else goes up to. And then other planeswalkers proliferate. One of the other planeswalkers proliferate. We have 3 planeswalkers in this case. So then that one proliferates. All the planeswalkers are up 4. Then the next one proliferates. All of them are up 6 that one turn. Okay, so I was right. Yeah, this is pretty sweet. It's like a blocker in that sort of deck. I don't see you ever swinging with this. It got a big booty. This is a sweet card. Keeping it as a commander though? Listen, if you keep this as your commander, I don't know. It doesn't have any card draw. It can block, I guess, but really it's not doing much than being like a nuisance in the command zone. You need to remove counters from artifacts and creatures you control. Like planeswalkers in that deck, I think are the only things that are gonna have counters. So like getting the indestructible counter on it, I think is gonna be a little bit wild. Like, do you really want to be taking off counters from your planeswalkers? Isn't it just gonna kill it most of the time? Like, get it really low. If this is out though while the planeswalker, it's gotta be out, right? If you're activating it. I guess it could be a blocker in that case, but then it's like it's gonna get swords, bruh. Like you're gonna use right. You can remove the counters as part of the activation, but then after you remove the counters as part of the activation, someone just like doom blades it. It just doom blade it, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do it again, but it's like you could, but then you put 2 counters of indestructible on it, I guess, because the counters are part of the cost. But then like you just stripped your planeswalkers of all the counters. What are you doing? What are you doing? Right? So I don't know if I'd keep this as the commander, but definitely include in that sort of deck. I think it'll be strong in that sort of deck. Even like a Simic counter space deck, like Proliferation is like really nice. It sort of pushes you to the edge and makes it like duper, uber duper nice, whatever that means. Cool card. Last but not least, we have Unctus, Grand Meta Tech. 1 blue legendary artifact creature Vidalcan Phyrexian. Other blue creatures you control have whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card. Other artifacts you control get +1/+1. Phyrexian blue. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes blue artifact in addition to its other types, acting only as a source for 2/4. Vidalcans are honestly one of my favorite creature types, and this is a pretty cool, I think, art for this card, and I want to like it, but geez, I don't know how I feel about this card. So you get to play a blue creature-based deck, a blue artifact creature-based deck, and then you're just going in for combat? Is that how it usually is? Like, even then, like, most blue artifact creatures, I feel like, have, like, 1 or 2 toughness. I guess giving the +1/+1 helps a lot there. And how do you give it, like, evasion, though? Maybe you don't even think of it that way, because you can just make your creatures artifacts. But in that case, you're using a lot of health. I don't know. I don't know about this card. I don't know, boys. It makes a good defender. It's got a big butt, but it's not really as aggressively sad as I'd like it to be, which I guess it can't because it's blue. It's interesting. It's not much to say about this card, other than, like, it's interesting. Like, what kind of deck wants this card? I feel like it's part of the 99 in Command. Other blue creatures you control. Like, if you want this card, you're probably playing it in, like, a blue-based artifact deck. Whenever this creature... Oh, yeah, so blue creatures have whenever this creature comes tapped, draw a card, and discard a card. So it's going to be able to loot really easily. It comes down relatively early. The +1/+1 is nothing to scoff at as an Anthem. But that... I can't get past, like, being in a blue aggro deck in Commander and, like, using all this life. But maybe it's not that bad, because if you're playing blue in aggro deck, especially tempo aggro deck, it's maybe where you want to be at. But the artifact thing seems really... It seems really limiting that artifacts can come tapped, but that's not that bad because you can just make them artifacts. Just make any creature an artifact. I feel like it's one of those things that shore up this card's weakness in that there's not too many blue artifacts, which is fine. This makes like the decks doable. But can you imagine just like going into combat super early and you just pay like 5 life to get in for some cards? 5 life? I mean, 5 life isn't doable, right? You have to pay like 4 life, 4 or 6. So for 2 creatures to attack that aren't artifacts, pay 4 life. That's 10% of your life? That's a lot. In blue? 10%. Jeez. I don't know. I don't know, boys. I don't know. The art is sick, though. I do like the art a lot. But the effect, I feel like it's missing something. I mean, you could just play blue pips. You don't have to use life all the time. But it's true. Like, you're going to be filtering out a lot of cards. It's like, what are you reaching for, though? Like, what is like, the end game for this sort of a deck? There's no, I think, super strong overrun effects or anthems in blue. I don't think. Maybe just get a high mass of artifacts and you swing in that way and win that way. Just flood the board, go wide. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, that concludes our run of the one blue for just everyday cards, I guess. I don't know. This is like sort of constructed, sort of commander, but maybe they're one and the same. What do y'all think about these cards? Let me know in the comments below. Peace out, and I'll catch y'all later.